everyone. It's great to see you all again. I know we had a week off, so it's great to be back. And I will now introduce our esteemed panel, and we'll start with Warren LeGarie, who attended Pacific 1972 to 1974, former member of the men's basketball team, and currently the president of San Francisco-based WGL Management and the executive director of the Samsung NBA Summer League. Also, Mark Sear, class of 19.
Can I make a correction on that? Can I make a correction real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's not the Samsung any longer, so it's the MGM Resort Summer League. Okay.
Well, I don't want to misname it.
And we want to make sure the payments are all coming.
I'm changing. I'm updating it right now so I don't screw that up again. MGM and NBA Summer League. Stumbling right out of the gate, am I? Mark Spear, golf
Sear.
Team. Sorry,
Sear.
Mark
Not
Sear.
like a Spear, you pro.
I had Sear, and there's actually my laptop screen is really dirty, and it made the E look like a P. So I apologize, but nonetheless, Mark Sear, member of the golf team, 1981 to 1985, currently a managing partner at Evoke Wealth. There's no one sponsoring Evoke Wealth, right? Like I didn't miss a sponsor there for you, Mark.
No sponsors.
Okay. And Angela Rosenquist, a class of 2000, member of the women's volleyball team, 1997 to 2000. Began her career with Angela, you're going to have to tell me here because I always say it every different which way. Is it Boboli or Boboli?
It depends on what part of the country you're in. If you're in New York, it's Boboli. If you're in Napa, it's Boboli. Yeah, so Boboli is what it was in Massachusetts growing up, and then I heard it different when I moved to Stockton. So how do you say it? I say Boboli because I'm California, but if I go to the East Coast, I do right by my buyers, and I say it the way they say it.
Okay, well, Boboli it shall be. So she began her career with Boboli in 2003, worked her way up to be vice president and part owner, and now she is working for Innovation, where she currently is the VP of sales. We're going to get into all of that coming up here shortly. But first, I'm going to start with Warren because Warren is with us from Costa Rica. And right when we signed in about 15 minutes ago was a brilliant sunset behind you. And Warren, I want you to clear it up for us because I think a lot of people might think that that's some wallpaper behind you, but that's actually the view that you have, right?
I have an incredible view, and it's from all three levels of the house that I was fortunate enough to build here. Yeah, it looks beautiful. Mark, I'm glad you were able to make it through the LA traffic. I know it was like
touch and go. We're here.
We were holding our breath for a little bit, but glad you all are here and welcome. I'm going to start with Warren. And Warren, my first question to you is, what did NBA player representation look like before you broke in with the NBA? Because you were the first agent of any kind to partner with the NBA. So that landscape before you broke in, what was that like?
Well, the partnership didn't happen until many years later after I had worked. First, as an overseas agent for a lot of players from the U.S. who went overseas. And then as interest in overseas players, the foreign players started to grow to be brought to NBA teams. I was one of the very first to bring players from Europe. The partnership occurred when I put together a concept for a summer league where we brought everybody together in one spot, or tried to bring everybody together. And that's when the NBA and myself partnered to make this event something that became sort of like the Burning Man of basketball during the summer.
And that was around what year?
Well, when we partnered, that was probably 2007. I started the league in 2004.
Gotcha. What was your vision when it got started?
You know, I have a lot of clients. Again, my evolution, I was an agent for players, but primarily overseas. And then as interest in the NBA grew in players from overseas, I became an agent domestically, still working on overseas. But one of the things that was always a big part of my needs every summer was being able to go to summer leagues to be able to see the talent that I was trying to recruit to go overseas. And it became more and more, when I first started, it was a place it was centralized in a place called Loyola Marymount, the university down in LA. And so we were able to basically see all the teams and the people in one spot. And then it started proliferating where there were summer leagues, satellite summer leagues in San Antonio, in New Jersey, and in Detroit. And there were so many different places, it was almost impossible to do your work or to meet with people. So a lot of my clients picked me to be able which later on I became a coaching agent and general manager. They pushed to have it one centralized spot, so their lives would be a lot easier, not a lot of travel, and being able to conduct business, see players, and basically have sort of a little bit of a getaway too. And Las Vegas seems to have that kind of appeal, so it made the venture a lot easier than I thought it would be.
Yeah, real fascinating stuff, and we'll delve deeper into that as we go on. By the way, if you have a question throughout any of this, we're going to get to questions as we kind of round the home stretch, the last 10, 15 minutes or so, and you can send your questions to Bree, and then she'll relay them to me. So please feel free to do that. Mark, the golf team, 1981 to 1985. What was Pacific Golf like in that era?
It was actually great. You know, back then I always joke with my friends, I still am a competitive amateur golfer, but I say, you know, there's no way I could make a college golf team today. They're just so good. I mean, it's remarkable. These kids are coming right off these college programs and going right into the big leagues. And back when I was playing college golf, it was much more of a party. It was somewhat serious. I think Dr. Glenn Alba always wanted to kill us because we were like not as serious as we should have been. But it was a great environment. One of the nice things about UOP is, you know, we got to play in all the big tournaments. So we ended up going to Hawaii on one side and back to the East Coast for another big tournament. So there weren't any tournaments that we couldn't play in because we weren't good enough. We played in the NCAAs a couple of times when I was there, which was an amazing accomplishment. And we also had great facilities. So we had Stockton Country Club, which was pretty close to campus. I think it was called Woodbridge, is where we sort of practiced all the time. And then, no, I'm sorry, Woodbridge was out in Lodi. That was in Lodi. And then, can't remember, Stockton Country Club maybe was the other one. Tim, you probably know.
Brookside?
No, it wasn't Brookside. That's new. That's a younger generation. Back when I was doing it, I think it was Stockton Country Club, Woodside, and there was another one that was Elkhorn. And so we would literally get to play great golf courses every day, even on the weekends, and we weren't members of any of them. So I think in terms of, you know, I'm not sure where college golf is today. I know how great the young players are, much better than we ever were. But, you know, Jeff Brejo was in my group, and he's still out on the senior tour trying to make a go of it. And Jeff Wilson played. He was low amateur. If you ever watched the picture of Tiger Woods at Pebble Beach accepting his, I think, 13 or 14 stroke victory, standing right next to Tiger is Jeff Wilson, who was my roommate and was the low amateur in that Pebble Beach U.S. Open. And he's been one of the top amateur golfers in the country. He actually won the United States senior amateur, and he's finished high in the U.S. senior the Open. So it was a very lucky time for me to be part of it, and without question sort of set me up to end up not doing golf. I realized I wasn't that good at golf, but it definitely propelled me in the right direction for other pursuits.
So yeah, my next one for you is did you always know you wanted to break into the financial world, and how did you make that transition?
It's a great question, Zach. First of all, I sort of did this self-evaluation after I graduated. Was that through golf, I think I really enjoyed meeting people, and I wanted to be in the people business in some capacity. I like the human relation, and I like creating relationships. I'm pretty good at math. I just always have been, you know, I'm better at math than anything else in terms of my educational stuff. And I love investing. I love the markets. They fascinate me. I've always been an investor in different securities, even since I was a little kid. I bought a house with my mom when I was like in high school, and I did all the work during the summer to paint it and clean it up, and then we sold it. So I had that experience. So I think those three things lend themselves well to the financial services business. Right? You know, pretty sharp at math, love investing and competing, and then like people. And so it was after I did that analysis, it was pretty easy that was a good field for me to go into.
That's great. I'm going to get into your path here in a little bit after we talk with Angela for a bit. Angela's a Stockton native, and you played on the women's volleyball team, as I mentioned, from 1997 to 2000. Did you know you wanted to go to Pacific in your high school career at the time? I mean, Pacific is only 10 years removed from winning back-to-back national titles. How did that process work for you with going from high school and then winding up at Pacific?
I'd say it was a little unconventional. I'll try to give you the elevator spiel. But I actually, everyone else on the team when I was a senior, they got, full rides. We were a high octane team from, St. Mary's High School, nationally ranked, to almost state championships. Came in second 2 years in a row, won to Misty May and her team won to Kerry Walsh in our senior year. So we were playing against the best, that was for sure. So I took a different route. I went to Delta College, and I was going to go to UCLA and go to law school, and volleyball was behind me. I became a Big West Conference referee while I was playing volleyball at Delta College, and John Dunning is one of the best, if not the best, setter coaches in the country. So he had Robin Lewis, Lindsay Kagawa, Gretchley Sepero, who ended up going to Nebraska, and I forget her name. She went to Long Beach. He had 4 on the docket, and then Tanya Dimitrovic was on the team. Sasha Kaldemeier had she was just graduating, and all 4 went to the other school. They picked 2 of them picked Stanford, 1 picked Long Beach, 1 picked Nebraska, and he came up to me after a match and said, "Hey, do you want to come on a recruiting trip?" And I looked at him. He was crazy. I'm 5'3". So I was like, "Hey, yeah, I will." And he actually came to watch me play at Delta College. We were celebrating our 35-0 season and going to state championships. So, I mean, it was just at an all-time high to it's like, wow, what an amazing career I've had. And before I put it in the rearview mirror, he called me on Thanksgiving morning and asked me if I wanted a scholarship.
That's really cool. I'm fascinated always by the intricacies of coaching and what makes someone good at coaching a certain elements. What made Dunning so good at coaching setters? What was his secret sauce there?
It's him. He not just has a technical gift, he has a gift of working with student athletes, with female student athletes. The communication, the persistence, he always challenges you to rise up to meet him where he is. He would never let's do this 9 more times and knock it out. It's not loan processing. It's volleyball. You always want to be a little better every time you touch the ball. And whether it's 3:00 in the afternoon on a Tuesday and we're stuck in main gym with no air conditioning, the noise quieted, and within those lines, every touch, it was, how do you touch it better next time? And he's so technically sound and great orchestrator too. So, when you look at volleyball, the setter, all things being equal, when you have a great passing team, which we did, the setter's gonna, let's just talk in general here, is gonna touch the second ball all the time. And that constant orchestration, you're always gonna make that ball better. And so there's a lot of pressure on the setter, and he realized that, and not only that, but the technical aspects of the game and how much has got to stay in a setter's head all the time. He was a good mental coach, knowing the mental acumen that you have to deliver that ball in a high pressure situation. I think that was his gift. And a lot of it had to do with how he was as a person as well. He made sure we were always hanging out. He made sure we operated together as a team. And he just made sure that cohesiveness was there. So it was something you didn't have to think about to get to play in the game. So really a special person.
Yeah, we've had him on. We had him on, I think, a couple months ago now, and he was fantastic, and you could tell that he had that special quality about him as a coach. Warren, I'm going to swing back to you. Can you tell us how your representation career began as a player agent in Europe?
It was a left turn instead of right. There was no thought out, this is where I want to go. I was working in the produce business, working god awful hours from 11 at night till about 2 in the afternoon, making fairly good money, but not the kind of satisfaction that that keeps your interest and makes you feel like this is what you want to be doing for the rest of your life. And I happened to go over to a summer league game at Loyola Marymount and realized I'd been working basketball for a very long time and still had it just felt like all I had to do was put the work in, the time in, but clearly there would be no reason why somebody would let me represent him here. I didn't know what I was doing. So Europe at that point was sort of a wild, wild west, and you made up the rules as you sort of went along. So Europe was a perfect place for me to begin because there was little competition and very little expertise. So I was able to develop sort of a niche in the marketplace that gave me a distinction. And with that distinction, I was able to grow, as I guess what they call it today is grow my brand.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to grab more interest from a number of clients. And I ended up with about 100 clients a year in Europe. And I was there 8 months a year and would come back here to sort of reconnect, especially for summer leagues. And then, like everything else, everything has a certain cycle to it. And I decided now was good enough to do the NBA, came back for the NBA, and then that cycle ran out. And I decided to represent a lot of my ex-players as coaches. And that's what I'm doing today, is to represent coaches and management people in the NBA.
What was Pacific basketball like if you go back to those days in the early 70s? There were some great players that played in that era, but what was it like for you being on some of those teams?
No, Pacific basketball was a factor. I mean, one year we were in the top 20 after having beaten Long Beach, where that was Jerry Tarkanian who was coaching there before he went to Las Vegas. John Ericart, I still think it's still a prominent citizen there. John Ericart was an NBA player. And they had a guy named Jim McCargo who went to high school in Oceanside, where I was from, down by San Diego, was the reason I came up there. But I came up for the academics, if you can believe that, but I went to a school called Callison, which doesn't exist anymore. Not Callison, I'm sorry. No, it was Callison. But it was a 1 year abroad school. It was a cross-cultural experience place, and it was about humanities, and there was no grades. You got basically, you got these sort of written reports about how your progress is working, and I love that. It really inspired me. Never quite finished school, so we can also correct the record on that. And I decided to join the School of Life, but Pacific helped me prepare for it. And I've always let people know how much that time spent there was very, very meaningful, and I still refer back to it.
That's really awesome. Mark, I'm going to jump back to you. What got you your start in the financial sector, and what did you envision when you got into it? What was going to be your path if you had a vision at all for it?
Well, this is going to sound corny, but I would say if you lined up all the people in 1981 that went to UOP and ranked them from most likely to succeed and most confident to least likely to be confident and biggest bonehead, I was that guy. I was in last place. There's no question about it. I was lucky to get in. I'd already started at junior college when Glenn Alba recruited me. I mean, I was the worst student, least potential guy. And through going through the golf team, helped me learn about competition, how you could compete ferociously and still have friends. I lived with two of the guys on the golf team, and while we played golf, we wanted to kill each other, but then we hung out together, right? So I learned a lot about that. And the Greek system, I don't even know if the Greek system is still strong today, but when I was there, I was an Archite. A lot of my friends were Archites, and we've got this brotherhood and this common bond. And, you think, well, okay, that, a lot of people got that. But for me, it was such a transformation. When I came out and I realized, by the way, before I went to the financial services, I went to business school. So that gave me business confidence. So now I have competitive ferocity. I was loving to be part of a group and passionate about being part of a team. And I was now much more well-trained financially and economically. Then it led into my career. And so, that's sort of a circuitous way of getting there. It wasn't what I ever aspired to do. But when I looked at, the daunting task of getting a job at Goldman Sachs, in fact, just a funny story. When I got hired at Goldman Sachs in 1993, you go to a training program in New York City. There were 116 young people in my class. 114 had gone to Ivy League schools. And there's only two that had not gone to Ivy League schools, me and some kid who went to Emory. By the way, my best friend in the training program was a kid from Emory because we were the two outcasts. Mm-hmm. But, it was again, I think there's I got a lot out of the golf program. I got a lot out of the school, and it led to me being able to compete with very talented young people. I was good. I had done 7 years at Home Weston Foods, and I had some good training and sales skills. So I was already good at developing relationships. And so when I started at Goldman, those things helped. And then the market was strong. If you can imagine being an advisor in the 90s, it's a layup, right?
Yep.
So good timing. and some good skills led to a beginning of a very successful career. And the other thing I think helped very much, and I didn't know this, Goldman, you always work as part of a team. You don't work on your own. And I loved being part of a team. It was a perfect fit for me. And so when they placed me on a team, we were instant brothers, the other three guys I was with, and we would fight for each other and compete with each other and help each other on those really ugly days when you didn't do that well. And so, I would say timing and lucky to pick Goldman, it was just, pure luck. And then some good training got me down the road. And it's been really an unbelievable run. I got to tell you, it's been great.
You said you were one of two non-Ivy Leaguers, but didn't you tell them that Pacific is the Stanford of the Valley?
No, I said Harvard of the West Coast. It's still my line today. I say, UOP is the Harvard of the West Coast. I've never even been to Harvard.
UOP's better. Trust me. I haven't gone to Harvard, but I've walked around, and I'll take this day. You founded Luminous Capital in 2008. It was then acquired by First Republic Bank in 2012. So there are lots of financial firms out there, lots of people that are strategizing, right? What distinguished you and your firm, and how did you intend to distinguish yourselves at the outset of developing your firm?
Yeah, so I was a broker for 16 years, 5 years at Merrill and 5 years at Goldman and 11 years at Merrill. I built out today as well as the private banking investment group at Merrill Lynch. I had an amazing 16-year career, but without question, in our souls as human beings, we were very clear that the best solution for a high net worth family is not a broker dealer, but a registered investment advisory firm. There's legal distinctions. I won't bore you with all the facts, but there's no question in my mind that that's a better alternative. So we founded Luminous with this goal towards, and we used to copy Apple Computer to change the world, right? Because everybody was at Goldman and Merrill and UBS and all these different places, and we were going to create an environment with lower fees, with transparency, with no proprietary products, everything that today seems like, oh, everyone does that, but back then in 2008, it was not that common. And then again, just like my timing at Goldman Sachs, good timing. We started in May of 2008, and all the banks were going bankrupt. I mean, Lehman went under. Bear Stearns went under, Goldman and Morgan turned into bank holding companies. Bank of America has to buy out Merrill Lynch. I mean, the whole world's on fire. So for an independent firm with a well-pedigreed background, people would listen to our story. And so that allowed us to get a good start. We grew from $1.7 billion of assets to $6 billion in 4.5 years and became the fastest growing registered investment advisory firm in the country. So that's a big part of it. The other thing is, up until that time, wealthy families never got to invest in what I would consider to be institutional quality private equity. It was always these huge funds run by big banks. And so we were the first to create an omnibus account and allow people to do that and do apartment buildings, senior living facilities, loans secured by real assets and things like that, which wasn't done at all at the time. And so those two things together, plus some really good timing, made it, work out. And so that's sort of how it came to be.
That's fascinating. I didn't even put together, and this is on me, I didn't put together the timing of all that with 2008 and what was going on.
Everyone thinks, oh my God, you started a firm in 2008. But remember, if you're an independent voice and you don't hold your money to broker dealer, but you're actually governed by the SEC and a fiduciary standard, you look really different. Today, you don't look that different. But let me tell you, in 2008, when everything around you is going bad and we're sitting there, we've been in that environment for 16 years. We pulled ourselves out to do something unique and different. People would meet with you, and it was great.
That's fascinating. Angela, back to you. You began your career with Boboli in 2003. Did you know that you were going to get into the food innovation sector? How did that all play out for you?
No, I spent the latter part of college playing volleyball and really getting my master's, working in the School of Pharmacy. Hi, Phil. So, working during the day, going to school at night. It wasn't until Cynthia Wagner White, who's in the business school, is my last class, and I was debating on which job offer to take, and she said, "I need you to do this interview. You're the only one I'm sending, and it's Tuesday at 9." Okay. So I went, and it was Boboli, and I thought, I don't know anything about the food industry. But I did my homework, and I was a personality fit there, and I never looked back. And, I'm almost 20 years down the road now, and, working with innovation cuisine, but still, I think over time, I almost looked at getting out of the food industry when I sold my shares back and decided to go a different route. But the network is so tight. And I think, Mark, you'd probably echo this, being in the financial industry, the industry gets smaller the older you get. And
for sure.
You tend to value it more. It becomes less about the product and more about the arena you're playing in. It's really akin to sports. And so, being able to travel, using finance every day, operations management, I will, all the time. Look, he's like, yes, she said it. But everything I learned in business school, I'm putting to practice every day. It's never routine. I'm either on an airplane or working in operations, supply chain, sales. Every day is different. And without that math background, and with all the business schooling that I went through, it really becomes second nature, and it allows me to love my job 20 years later. So.
You mentioned all these different elements, but food innovation is kind of the backdrop of all that. So what is it about food innovation that has kind of kept you?
It's the science, the romance, the passion, the food itself. To be able to get into a room with, and like Michael Bell says, you never want to be the smartest person in the room. If you are, you need to go find a different room. So to be able to be around all these different abstract minds that we're working hard to create something that you don't know you want yet, but it's going to be delicious. That takes it takes a lot of data analytics and syndicated data processing to understand the dynamics of consumer behavior and how we shop. We study how you shop in a grocery store. We study how you shop online, and those metrics lead us to answers. And before data analytics, we see that dimension, that sexy aspect of food. And food was kind of run of the mill 20 years ago. It was like, got a diet program and a diet plan, everything's skinny and light and fat free, and everything was going that direction. And now when you look at all the different ethnic cuisines and all the spirit that's gone back into the food industry and restaurants and the Food Network and Top Chef, it's amazing how popular food has become. So kind of like Mark was saying, you hit it at the right time, but you still got to find your niche, and that's how it grew on me over time, and we drive hard and put it to work every day.
It's really funny that you say that. I happen to be in Omaha right now, and I was just walking around earlier. I'd never been here, and I didn't expect much of it in terms of the breadth of what you can get food wise. And it's fascinating to me how many cool little enclaves there are for food that brand themselves as these really kind of niche-y places. And if you go back 20 years ago, I don't think you'd have that. I mean, you'd have places that were chains and places that kind of got you in and out. And now people want something totally different. So that sentiment, I can definitely relate to that even just today, walking around a city like Omaha. So I think you're spot on.
Yeah. And, staying in touch with the food science also, like I went to New York last year and got my olive oil sommelier certification, and went over to CZ. I went down to Arizona. It's amazing what's going on in the food science world. The Queen Creek, Arizona is one of the top olive oil production places in the United States now. And it's that 30 to 45 degree around the world that if you hit that right pocket from Texas, Arizona, obviously Northern California, and into Italy, it's amazing to stay in touch with the food science and what you can do with food. So I think that's the part that's never routine.
Olive oil sommelier, la-ti-da. That's pretty cool. I didn't even know that there was that distinction, but that's really awesome.
Yeah.
Warren, I want to bounce back to you for a minute. At what point did you know you'd gotten your big break? Like when you decided to enter this arena, if you will, at what point did you say, wow, I'm onto something here?
I think when I got a call back from Jerry West. That sort of gave me, it's sort of, you can make all the calls you want in my business. It's the calls that are returned. They're the ones that ultimately define you. And I think that was a moment where you started to say to yourself, maybe I do matter in this business. Because a lot of times you certainly wonder if that's the case. And you toil, you people don't realize the amount of work and development into clients and all the other things that go on. But the worst thing that can happen is you start really believing you do make a difference, and then you start cutting corners, you start doing things that ultimately relieve you of that success level quickly. So you always have to act as if you're still just starting out and you're trying to make a difference. And ultimately, people appreciate that sort of approach, and more importantly, that mentality, because they know you're always going to keep working hard for, obviously, for their interest, on behalf of their interest.
I don't know if you have ever talked with Scott Boras, who's the other very prominent sports agent that was a Pacific alum, but obviously Scott found something in the baseball market that he was able to kind of build his brand based on a lot of inefficiencies, I think, beforehand. And then he came in and really was able to make a name for himself and to brand himself as the agent that could really get the players the money that they deserved. Can you give us some perspective at all? Is there any similarities with what Scott has done in baseball, what you have done in basketball?
Look, Scott, I don't know Scott. I know of Scott. I've known people who've talked to him. I don't do anything in baseball. I'm very loyal to basketball. But he, he's a shark. And you can make that, you have to make a decision about who you want to be in this business. And you can alienate or make people fear you. But generally, you better have clients that are medicine, that are going to cure somebody's ills. Because if they're not, the hardest part is to try to land guys in mid-level jobs or even sometimes in minimum jobs. And if you've created more mayhem than you have constructive atmosphere, you probably are going to struggle. So you then spend all your time trying to get just the top level clients. And in the world of basketball, they call it marketing guarantees. It's a lot of payoffs. So you hate to say it, but that's how the business works. And in order to get the top clients, they want to be taken care of, not only the player, but his family and everybody else. And it's just not something I've ever believed in. So you again, I think it was just mentioned about finding your niche, like in the food business. Find your niche. Find what you do best, and let that be the reason people come to you, not because you give them an extra dollar. And that way you have a really much more fulfilling sort of experience, and ultimately your clients are way more loyal to you. And so I can't say yes or no to what Scott does. I know of one situation where somebody who was a partner of mine, Warren LeGarie, who was prominent in baseball as well as basketball, and now was a part owner of the Detroit Pistons, he lost a very prominent client, Barry Zito, to him. So I got one side of the story from Arn about that relationship, but it's everybody has to decide who they want to be in the business and how much of themselves they want to give up in terms of their, and I'm not saying Scott has given up integrity, but who they want to be and ultimately who they see in the mirror. And I still like who I see in the mirror, which means I'm in the right direction of my career and what I've done. And fortunately, in the coaching market, I have the most clients of anyone. So I like to think that it sort of worked. And and more importantly, I have so much fun. I never work a day in my life. I'm here in Costa Rica having another life, and I'm still able to do my business there. And nobody resents me for doing it, which is even better, which means they still feel I'm fulfilling the promises I made to them. So that's sort of my story. And again, Scott Boras is tremendously successful, but it's not my cup of tea.
Mm-hmm. Interesting stuff. I love the perspective. I'm going to jump back to Mark. And Mark, I'm going to start with an anecdote, and then I see Glenn Albaugh on here. So I'm going to start with an anecdote just from me from, I think it was last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, whenever the Patriots played the Seahawks, that Sunday night game. I don't know if anybody saw. I'm a big Patriots fan, of course, and I'm watching this thing, and I'm seeing Pete Carroll coach, and it was the end of the half, and there was a play that was happening where Pete took a timeout for some reason, I think to see if the Patriots would have a bad snap and maybe fumble on the goal line. The odds of it happening were like 0.001%. But Al Michaels said something at the time. He goes, when you coach, or Belichick said this about Pete Carroll. He says, when you play a Pete Carroll coach team, you cannot ever take a play off and you can't take a second off, and they're going to fight for every inch. And I thought to myself, that's UOP, like that's Pacific, because when you are coming from a place like Pacific, and Pete coached football at Pacific, obviously he had that sort of mentality. And I know a lot of that goes back to Dr. Albaugh, from what I've heard with people's dealings with Dr. Albaugh and how they were mentored by him. What was it like to be coached by Dr. Albaugh?
It was fantastic. I mean, again, I think I was so lucky to be the last guy picked, the last guy in. I was already in school. Glenn saw something in me, and probably it happened because somebody that was offered a scholarship before me didn't take it at the last minute, right? I'm honest. That's probably what happened. But he never made me feel like that I wasn't the greatest thing ever. He really expected greatness from me the first day. And I actually had my best year in my 4 years of my freshman year. I really did. Came out of the gates fast and hard. I learned about toughness. I mean, I didn't know anything about it. I was a pretty good junior player, but I'd never really had to do anything. I mean, Glenn made us make the team every time. Doesn't matter how good you are, you got to make the team. And so we're like scratching each other's eyes out for that 5th and 6th spot, because you want to travel, and you've got 4 guys for 2 spots, and we're all living together. It's like horrifying, right? But it was tough, and it toughened you up. And then, no matter how well you played, you got to go to the green. You have to make 100 putts. It just, and I don't know any other programs to compare it to. But given where golf was at the time, I don't think, you see those movies on TV where like, no one's going to run faster. No one's going to be tougher than us. I don't know if we're going to be that good, but we're going to train so hard. I think back in the day, given what college golf was, we trained the hardest. I really think Glenn was tough on us. And I didn't like him very much then because he was an SOB, right? But I've gotten older. I've learned to really respect his commitment and work together. We still are in contact today. And I think, as I realized how fortunate I was, I didn't feel I was fortunate at the time at all. But I think now I look back, it was a guy who gave me just enough rope to try to, he knew I was young and inexperienced, and he let me join a fraternity and let me do some other things that were probably a little bit of a stretch for a college athlete. But at the same time, he expected always of me, no matter what I did, to be exceptional, and wouldn't tolerate excuses. He wasn't that kind of guy that said, well, it's not your fault or anything like that. It's like, it didn't happen. He's very philosophical. Like, that's not what happened. Mm-hmm. This is what happened, and we'll move on. But for me, it was a great fit. I don't know. I'm sure in every instance for coaches, not everyone's a great fit. And I think Warren just said something about you have to believe in something and follow your heart, or be a certain way. And I always think I'm always respectful of those businesses like In-N-Out Burger, where you don't have a chicken burger, you don't have a taco, you've just got a great hamburger. Or Southwest Airlines, it's a 737 airplane that goes 1 hour. That's it. You don't have any other choices. And those businesses turn out to be great businesses. It's the ones who get stuck in the middle. They're not sure what they are, that end up being not so great. And I think in Glenn's case, he was always true to himself, never picked favorites, was very transparent about where you were on the team and what your opportunity set and what you need to do to make the team. And that served me great in life. I mean, in my business, where I think we've done well as a firm, is we're super transparent. We have decided to go the other side. Instead of being salespeople and telling everyone how great they are, and I'm sorry I didn't make money on that, but we'll try harder. Like, we're very honest, put out a statement that's very transparent. We let people know what they're paying, and that's what we do. And we do it in every relationship, and it's made all the difference. Now, not everybody wants that. Some people want to go in a different direction, but I think I got that from Glenn. I think part of where I am now today came from that experience at golf team at UOP.
How did he coach you up mentally? Because I know he was very big on that.
He wasn't as big back then, to be fair. I mean, the reality was he was just as himself becoming more of a mental professional. I mean, he's now, worked with Scott McCarron. He's had great success. He's revered for that. But I think back then we didn't know it. We were too dumb at the time to know what he was doing, but he always was like 2 steps ahead of us. So he would sometimes like quarantine us to our rooms. You are in your rooms, you can't do anything. And then we'd go to we go to the Standard Invitational. He knew a couple of us lived by there. And suddenly he's like, yeah, I'll see you at the course of 9 tomorrow morning. Like, well, what about, what about not being able to leave the room? What are we going to do for dinner? And then also we're on our own, and we've got to remember that we have to do certain things. And I'll never forget one time I went to the Stanford Invitational when we had this long rope, and I forgot my golf uniforms. I had no uniform. Like, everybody has like khaki pants and orange shirt. And then round 2 is gray slacks and a black shirt. Like, I had none of it. I left it at UOP. And he didn't get mad at me. Never got mad at me once. He just let me soak up being an idiot. And it was the best thing he could have done. Like, if I couldn't be any harder on anyone than I already was on myself. and he made me wear something else. I looked like a total jackass, but I learned from that. Like that was the best learning experience ever. Instead of being a total jerk and making me feel worse, he's like, oh, well, just play with it. And everyone in the tournament made fun of me. It was way worse than him being mad. So those were I think that was a mental game back there, but I didn't know it as a mental game.
If everybody let me soak up being an idiot, I would be in so much trouble, but I'm glad you were able to get out of that rut. Angela, I want to go back to you. How did being an athlete, and maybe even specifically an athlete on the Pacific women's volleyball team, how did that in a way or two prepare you to tackle the corporate world and to really climb the ladder in the fashion that you did?
I think there's an easy answer, there's a hard answer, there's a long one, there's a short one. I think a lot of it was to compete with class, and you're not going to win. I mean, first of all, it's no fun, but you learn a lot from the losses, especially earlier in life. When we're just getting started in let's call it the real world. I always learned a lot more from the losses than the wins. Now, I always prefer the wins, even if they're close. I'd always take a good win over what people like to call. I don't really believe in this, but lessons with me. And I think another thing was when we compete against somebody who is more proficient at something than we are. We do all this game film study and all this preparation, and we're working hard and we're practicing against something that doesn't exist yet. And Dunning told us two things, and these have served me really well in life. First, in order to win big games, you got to win big games. And then you do it again. But until you get there, you're going to struggle. And I think the other piece was we were in, believe it or not, Nebraska, and we landed there. We're tired, and he's like, "All right, let's go. Before we go to dinner, we're hitting the court. Once you guys get a feel for the gym." We're like, "Jesus, John, we're hungry. It's late. Our plane was late." And he's like, "Yeah, okay." And just kind of ignored us, right? Just put your shoes on, let's go. And so we go. We don't even go to the hotel. We go, straight to the gym. And he goes, "Guys, I'm going to tell you something." And I think I was a sophomore at the time. And he goes, "Whatever time zone you're in, that's what time it is. That's when game time is. So if we're playing in Florida and it's a 7 o'clock game time and it's 4 o'clock at home, what are you going to do? You're going to be ready in 3 hours? The whistle blows now." And so, when you start to go through life and you're coaching other people, like I have a team of 20 people, and you coach them as a team, but you coach them individually. But there are a few messages that I've taken with me where you're like, okay, time out. We're not on the same page. And before we walk out that door, I don't care if we're yelling and screaming and just kicking our way out. That's not my idea. I didn't get credit for that. Say whatever you want. When that door opens, we got the same jersey, same uniform, same message. And that kind of stuff has served me well. And it's not always the big ideas that I walk away with or remember at a key time. It's those little nuggets along the way when you were tired or it was a big loss, or you got to get 10 out of 10 in serve receive before you can get out of practice. And it's the hitting the nine. We're like, dude, it's 7 o'clock. We're hungry. We still have to go lift with John McBride. This night is far from over. Don't be the rally killer. And so all of a sudden, this person who shanked a ball for the last 45 minutes, you're just circling around her going, get it done. How can we help you? And so, it's stuff like that you go through, and then it shifts from physical to mental, right? We're not all still playing pro sports every single day, most of us at least, but it's that mental piece of it that you carry with you. And I think one of the last pieces, and then I'll stop, is to be able to give that back to the people on my team. So I've learned it, I've used it, and now I get to hand it over. And I think that's one of the most special things too, is to teach somebody who wants to be at the top of their game, and you helping them build their own ladder. And I think that's an awesome experience too. And so, and you kind of get that at different phases of life. And I feel like I'm at that phase, and it feels really good.
It's got to be so gratifying. So I mentioned that you're now the VP of sales for Innovation. That's INNOV Asian, and it's one word. What are some of the challenges you're facing now? And can you take us kind of inside what your role is now and where you are with that company and where that company is?
Sure. We've actually tripled in size since I've started there. And it's been a really fun experience. And I say fun in a very unique way. So about 15 years ago, there are a lot of us that float around one national industry, and a few of us got together and said, wouldn't it be fun someday to work together? So it was like this little dream team vision over cocktails. And it finally came together 5 years ago when my buddy Joe, who's now my boss, the president of our company now, he called me and he goes, hey, it's time. Like, we got a spot. I want you to be, we got to do this. If we don't do this now. And so that's kind of how I've picked my team too, is people that I've truly enjoyed working with along the way. And now they're on my team. And to me, that's kind of the struggles that coaches go through, right? Also, you want somebody who's reflective of the personality and the success in the direction you're going, not the direction you are. And so where that served us well, back to your original question, is, we work in the food industry. The food industry got declared an essential working environment. We went from innovation and what's new and gunning for the top to we need to feed people. We need to stay in stock. We need to run our operations differently. So we started allocating product to make sure that everybody's shelves were full to a certain degree. So it got really intense. And then knowing that my team never stopped going to grocery stores to help out. I mean, they call them major chains, Kroger Corp, Albertsons Corp. We're doing those multi-million-dollar deals. And it's like, all right, now we got to break hard left. And hey, team, every week, are you comfortable being in the stores? Do you feel safe? We wrote them essential worker letters because every state was all over the board. You get pulled over in Massachusetts and you can go anywhere you want in California. So, making sure that my team was taken care of while they're taking care of customers. I think from the academic acumen from Pacific to the teamwork and everything we've learned along the way, it prepares you for those moments. And I think that's where you truly win. And I think we're winning right now because of how we're handling that type of situation. And it's not letting up. So we're really in a tough mode right now, but I think we're just being very, very smart about it.
Wow, that's it's amazing what your industry is going through, and that's great insight as to what you have to do as someone in that field. It's remarkable, and I'm sure a lot of things that none of us really have to think about on a day-to-day basis is everything you're thinking about on a day-to-day basis. I want to jump back to Warren real quick. Warren, I have been told that Dr. Larry Meredith is on this Zoom call, and he's on this call obviously because you're here. So I just wanted to give him a shout out and maybe have you say a couple words.
One of the things that I've been very lucky to have are terrific mentors during my career. And Larry Meredith was the very, very first mentor that helped me navigate a world that I was a little bit unsure of and certainly confused about. And he gave me some great insight. And he actually helped me get over to Japan, where I found a whole nother life. Helped me now being able to work very seamlessly overseas as well as domestically. But Larry Meredith was sensuous Christian. I'll never forget his book. It was so inspirational. But Larry Meredith is truly a legend of his time, not like so many people who are legends in their own mind. This guy is truly a game changer. He helped so many young people, and he did it selflessly, and he did it with great enthusiasm. So you always felt value when you were with him.
That's really cool. We're rounding the corner here, so I'm going to get to some questions from the gallery. These have all been submitted for each of you. And since we're with Warren, I'm going to keep it with Warren right now. The question for Warren: what was your toughest negotiation for one of your clients? If you can give us some insight into that.
It's in almost everyone is tough because really you have to prepare. You have to know not only your own.
Did we lose Warren, or did we lose me?
Warren's frozen on my screen.
Okay, I got Angela, so we lost Warren. Maybe we'll come back to Warren. hopefully he bounces back in here and realizes he's got to sign back on. But Warren, you're not there, are you? Nope. Okay. I'm going to go to Mark. Bree, I think Mark is muted, so if you could unmute him for me. Sorry, Mark, we didn't mean to mute you.
No, I muted myself. I was trying to help with the signal. I thought maybe if I turned off some stuff, it would work better. And then I got muted out. So I was texting Tim to say, hey, can you tell him to mute me?
Yep. No, we're good. We'll go to Mark's question now. Mark, the question for you is, if you could have your college career to do all over again with golf, would you do anything differently than what you did?
Oh, God, yeah. I would take it so much more seriously. I am a passionate, committed amateur golfer today, and I love the game. It is my biggest joy in life. There's no question. I mean, I love what I do for a living, and I've been very blessed to I've had an unbelievable career for 28 years now in the investment management business. And I have great partners and great clients, and I'm the luckiest guy you'll meet. But my true passion is sort of some good grass and some good golf balls, a little breeze into you, and a cloudy day so it's not too hot, and just practicing. And I didn't get to do that as much. I didn't do that as much as I would have today. And I would have and I'm much more competitive now than I used to be. And I was just kind of a blow off back then. So I would have definitely loved the opportunity to do it again, because I really think I could have been a special golfer. But, you make decisions in your life, and, I chose a different path. I was very mature when I went to college. I'd skipped a grade early on in my high school, or somewhere along the lines. I got pushed ahead. And so I think I graduated college at 20 years old, and I looked 15. And so I was one of those, very gangly little kids. And the idea of getting into a fraternity and away from home, like I said, my best year in college, my freshman year, was a down. Sure, I'm surprised Glenn didn't kick me off the team halfway through because, I didn't take it as seriously as I could have. And now I sit back here, I'm 56 years old, and I'm competing as a senior in all events, and I'm pretty good, but I given it a better shot. I'll never have that opportunity back. So it's not a disappointment. It's just it's the answer to the question, what I would do differently.
Yeah. I think we all have those similar kind of regrets about when we're growing up, right? You just don't know, you don't have the awareness that you do in retrospect. And in some ways, that's kind of why one of the cruelties of life is that everything you can kind of look back and say, wow, I could have done this and that. But you're perennially ranked as one of the top 100 financial advisors in the country. So I think
right. So I got that going for me. I said to my brother one time, because my brother got into my business, and he was kind of floundering around, and he's like, I miss golf. My brother played professionally on tour of bumping along the PGA Tour and the mini tour for 3 years. And I said, look, Steve, I'm Tiger Woods in my field. Like, in my field, you could be great. You just got to commit yourself to a different field. And so, by the way, I'm not Tiger Woods. Let's not get carried away, but I was in the moment. So the point is, whatever you're doing, when you leave I love golf. I'm passionate. It is the biggest thing in my life, but yet I can take that passion and commitment to another field and get almost the same joy out of being a leader in that industry. And that's what's been fun.
Sure. By the way, it looks like I feel like I'm the host of PTI on ESPN, and I've muted Warren, or I've kicked him off. Warren's still on, and hopefully he's coming back. If not, I wish we could have gotten that answer from him. But Angela, I'm going to go to you now. If you could do it all over again with volleyball, is there anything that you would change about how you went about your experience?
No, I mean, my path, I think that, kind of similar to how you described Mark, you end up in the best your field. I think when I look at it, I struggled, and you, Mark, I don't know how you feel about this, but volleyball was my passion. And volleyball and then academics was right behind it, but it was always volleyball first. And so, when you have to take your shoes off for the last time and switch gears, how do you ever replace that passion? And that was like the biggest thing for me, is especially my path to go there was not conventional, as you heard earlier. But replacing that passion, and that's really kind of more the spirit reason that I've gotten into food and stayed in food. I started to feel that feeling, that spark, and there's no words for it. It's just there or it isn't. And it was always there when a ball was in my hand. And when I was in between those lines, and to be able to get close to that was something else. But I truly believe it's the path I took, and I love where I am today. And if it weren't for the crazy road to Hana that volleyball took me through, I wouldn't be here now. So.
Another one for you, Angela. If you were to advise somebody that wanted to get into your field now, how they would go about doing it, because food, I guess, is can be very popular, and people might look at what you do and say, "Wow, that's really cool." I'm not going to ask how they'd go about doing that, but what are some of the traits they need to develop in themselves to be able to get to the level that you're at?
Oh, geez. It's kind of everything to do with sports. It's time management, it's self-discipline. If you can master those two, you're halfway there. You know, you got to be willing to knock some doors down too. I mean, I think when I entered the industry, and it's not very different now. There are very few women at this level. And you got to keep going, and you can't say no early. Invite, if you don't get invited to the party, find another party or find a ticket. Like, let's go. Keep opening the doors for yourself, because like you said earlier, and I think Mark alluded to it too, when the world is swirling around you in college, you can't see yourself from the outside looking in, right? You're just kind of grabbing at things sometimes. And I think one of the best things that set me up for the path I'm on now, which I would call it successful in my eyes, for me personally. I'm not ranked anywhere in terms of salespeople, but when I look at it, it was all the things I said yes to that made me just a little uncomfortable. It was the interviews I went to when I really wanted to be a sports agent. But it was all the interviews I went to jobs that I was like, oh well, let's at least get in front of people and work out the kinks. If you do that for yourself, you're not only going to be successful in say the food industry. I think that kind of steers you towards being successful in life, is being willing to make yourself uncomfortable and work out the kinks. Because then when you see something and you want to get it right, those butterflies are flying in formation and you're going to nail it. So that would be my answer.
That's a great answer. Mark, last one here, and then we probably have to wrap it up. What do you, the question for you is, how would you, what's going to be the challenge for you in navigating the years ahead because of what COVID has done to the economy and the landscape and the way things are? What are going to be some of the challenges that you're facing now, and will they be similar to some of the challenges you faced in 2008?
No, completely different. In 2008, if you remember, interest rates before 2008 on the short end of the curve, what you get on your cash were 5 or 6%. And the Federal Reserve had a lot of monetary room to lower interest rates to try to re-stimulate the economy. And in fact, if you remember, they lowered them eventually to zero, which gave a lot of thrust to the economy. At the same time, if you remember, the fiscal package that was put forth in Congress was about $880 billion with a B. So seemed big, but it's not that big compared to what we've done today. Today, we're in a horrible spot, right? We did nothing from 08 to 2020. We've done nothing in terms of trying to stop quantitative easing. Our balance sheet was about 3% of GDP before 08, rose to about 14 to 15% of GDP after 08 and 09, which is never been done in history except for 1929. Suddenly, today it balloons to 50% of GDP. I mean, these are numbers that are off the planet. At the same time, we're spending fiscally, we'll end up spending when we pass this next stimulus bill collectively over almost $5.5 trillion with a T, right? So that's 25% of our GDP is going to be spent in a few months, and it's just never happened before. So this is a very, very difficult time. And when people see the assets prices moving up, there's no inflation. Yes, there is inflation. It's in asset prices because there's all this money sloshing around. And it's ending up, because you don't get paid on anything in your bank account, it's ending up in the markets. And that could be the art market, the home market, the second home market, the stock market. And so you're in a really difficult spot, because if you said, how does it look forward? Well, let's see, bond yields today are about 2% and stocks are trading at 30 times earnings. So maybe they provide a 4% return. So you've got to tell clients, I'm a genius and I'm going to give you about a 3 or 4. And that's difficult. And so we don't do that, but I think that's one of the things that's never happened before. And it's going to be very interesting how my industry does. I guess I feel like we're better than average and we do an exceptional job. So maybe some difficult times will help shake out the less good players, and that could be beneficial to us. But anybody who thinks the next 10 years are going to be a smooth ride, I think is not looking at it correctly. It's going to be very difficult times.
Yeah, well, it's going to be fascinating for sure, and I'm sure you're going to be there to guide everybody appropriately with your firm. So thank you so much for the insight to all of you, to Mark, to Angela. We got Warren back on for a moment, but for some reason we couldn't get him unmuted. So thanks to Warren as well. I want to remind everybody that next week's Tiger Talk, it'll be aquatics with water polo, swimming, and diving. This coming Thursday, we have a Pacific Golf Meet the Team virtual event at 7. And we'll have the Zoom link out to you for that. And then tonight, Pete Carroll is going to be live, speaking of Pete, with President Callahan on the Leading Voices series at 6:30. And you will be able to get the link for that through the chat. There we go. Bree just sent you the links to all the chats. There's Pete, there's the golf team this Thursday, and then next week we're back at 4 o'clock. It's Pacific Aquatics. So thank you so much, all of you, for your insight. Thanks for being with us. Always love these Tiger Talks. And until next time, go Tigers. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.